You ever feel like people aren't really listening to what you have to say? You ever feel like that you're not really hearing what others have to say? Well, sometimes it feels like there seems to be a failure to communicate. Join me today as we talk about in episode 49, a failure to communicate. Welcome to the Surging Forward podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Surging Forward broadcast, where we're helping you to have a positive view in a negative world. My name is David Valentine, and I'm here to help you see the value in the job you do and how you can keep surging forward. Hello, and welcome to the Surging Forward podcast. I want to say thank you again, as I do every week, for all of you that have taken your time to listen to this podcast, and I'm hoping that you get a little bit out of it. And obviously, if you're listening, I guess maybe you are. And if this is your first time listening, I want to thank you for taking your time to listen, as this is a basic podcast that helps you as tradesmen and even those in other careers learn the basic principles of leadership and how you can grow in your career. I gear it basically to tradesmen, whether you're an electrician, carpenter, HVAC technician, plumber, anything on construction, mechanic, pipe fitter, whatever the case may be, because actually I came up in the trade, so that's kind of what I cater to, sorry about that. And I try to create a positive view in this negative world, which keeps you surging forward. We get bombarded with so much garbage all week long. So I just want to kind of be that positive message at the end of, or the beginning of every week, because we're putting these out on Mondays now. And that way it kind of can maybe help you have a little bit better week and kind of learn how to just take things one day at a time. A lot of times if I talk to those around me, a lot of times the message is actually for myself, a lot of times more than just others, but I just want to share it and bring it out to those. So I want to give a special thanks to all of you also that have encouraged me as I started this podcast. It's been almost a year now, and it's really grown. We've been reaching people from all across the United States now, and that's pretty fantastic. I can kind of see the areas where people are listening, and one of these days I'll be in all 50 states. I think that's going to be pretty cool. So with your help, as you keep sharing this podcast out to those you know, we get a lot of Facebook group and interaction and different things like that. And if you have anything that you would like me to talk about, my lines are open. Drop me a line to dave@surgingforward.com. Or you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter, Surging Forward on Twitter. You can find us at Surging Forward on Facebook. And yes, we're also on Instagram. So that's kind of a funny deal. We're really learning how to do this social media thing. And so I'm not an expert by far, but that's one of those things that just goes to show you that you can learn whatever you want to do. So we've been learning a lot over this past year, but I haven't done it alone. It's been with the help of a lot of cool people who have stepped in to help me out there. So if you want the links to any of those, I will put those on the surgingforwardpodcast.com. So feel free to visit there and you'll have the links there. And feel free to get a hold of us any way you'd like to. So I also want to give a special shout out to one of my students, one of my third year students this year. Yes, third year, not fourth year. And Brad Denhark, he just sent me an email yesterday. Now, Brad was the kind of guy, he was doing great in third year, and he wasn't your most fantastic student, but he wasn't a bad one either. He was right there in the middle. But he was always trying to, better himself and always wanted to ask questions. He would always catch me after class and really just had that gun-ho attitude of wanting to make himself better. Well, he got a better opportunity to go to another job, and he came to me and talked to me and said, Dave, I've got this opportunity. I said, great. So I just encouraged him. And I talked to him a little bit about he wanted to test out and take his test and get his journeyman's license. I says, hey, the worst thing that can happen is I could say no. So, I mean, sure, go for it. So I gave him some pointers there, and he just sent me an email yesterday that he passed his journeyman's test. Fantastic, Brett. Great job. I always love hearing those success stories. He was thanking me and all, but really I didn't do anything. I just gave him a couple little pointers and some tips and some things he could do. But this is what makes it worth it when I hear other people's success stories. So that's why I say that all the time. If you have a success story, hey, share it with me. So, and I'm actually looking at starting a one-on-one coaching for those that are looking at taking the electrical exam test. Later on, I may do it for HVAC and plumbing also, but electrical is my forte. And so right now I'm looking at starting it just with that. So if any of you are interested out there, drop me an email and I'll let you know when I start scheduling the sessions. They're going to be specific training on what your weekend in the National Electrical Code. So they'll be an hour long. I can do them by email, or actually I'd rather do them in person. So I'm either going to do them by Skype. I'll help you set up a Skype thing to where we can talk face to face, almost like FaceTime with people that have Apple. But we'll just do a face to face conversation where it's over the phone. But I'll set an hour at a time. I haven't quite determined what the cost is going to be. It's probably going to be in the zone of, I'll be honest, around $95, $100 an hour. But it's going to be catered to your specific need. So what I'm putting out there, it doesn't matter where you live at, because again, we can do it by Skype and whether it's over the phone. I'd rather do it face to face. So I'll set you up for all that and show you how to do it. You get a hold of me by email. But if you're interested in something like that, send me an email, drop me a line, and the first 20 people that send me an email that express an interest, I'll give you 50% of whatever price I determine it's going to be. Like I said, it's going to be right around that $95 to $125 an hour range. But again, it's going to be geared. I'll be asking you specific questions before we actually start. So it's going to be geared on what you're going to need. So if it's code calculations you're concerned about, hey, we're going to spend an hour talking about code calculations. If it's just, you don't know the code at all, well, hey, I'll give you the inside out of how to understand the code and just how to really pass the test just by understanding how to use the code book. I'm actually working on a course for that right now. It'll probably be a good 3 to 4 hour code update course. So if you know anybody that might be interested in that, hey, just drop them a line and share my info with them. So without further ado, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today is a lot of times we have these things that we want to ask a question, but we fail to communicate. Okay? So in today's episode, number 49, I want to talk about a failure to communicate. So let's get started. One of the biggest things I see in today's world, we have all the newest technology, yet we still fail to communicate. And I want to ask, why is that? And I think a lot of it boils down is that, I see a lot of stuff on Facebook, and it's starting to get better in some of the groups where, they're not taking kindly to people that just sit there and bash people online there, which it intimidates a lot of people. So people are afraid to communicate that they don't know how to do something. Or and I see it at work a lot of times. People just assume that I know something because I happen to be an electrical inspector. And of course, I inspect pipe work and concrete and rebar, and I get involved in a lot of different inspections also. But because I'm an inspector, people just assume I know everything about that object or about that item or about that particular piece of equipment and that gear. My friends, that's furthest from the truth. And I've talked about this many times on past podcasts. None of us know everything. And I see a lot of very respectful instructors out there that I see out there on some of the Facebook pages, and that we talk about out there. And you can see that they have a wealth of knowledge, but they don't ever claim to know everything. But then you got other ones out there that just beat up on every little thing because they feel like beating up somebody elevates them to a higher position. Well, that's not the case, my friends. the failure to communicate comes into play because people are intimidated to communicate their needs with other people. It's just like I've offered so many things on this podcast, and I've offered, my expertise and what I have, and I'll let you know what I know and I don't know. There's many of you that you can ask me a question, and I'll tell you flat up, I don't know. But what I can do for you is that I can help you find the information. And so that's what we do, and we work it out together. It's not about, a take relationship. Of course, I haven't gotten bombarded yet, and I hope I don't, with people that just want to take, and not want to do anything on their own. But if you want to learn something, I am just one of many people out there that you can ask a question to. And so when you ask that question, you don't want to be afraid to ask the question. Because what's the worst thing they can say? The worst thing they can say is no. And also, too, so many people withhold certain amount of information because they think the person already knows. You see, our communication today, I think, it's changed so much in the past, 20 years, let alone the past 10 years or the past 5 years. It's amazing. I go up to I drive into work in the morning, I look on the bus stop, and I see a group of people standing on the corner, and everybody's got the phones out there just kind of doing this number. And of course, if you're not watching the video on YouTube, which we also have YouTube, I failed to mention that earlier. You can't quite see what I'm doing, but you know what I'm talking about. They got the phone sitting out, and everybody's looking on the phone, and they're texting each other. Nobody's talking. We're losing the ability to be able to ask a question. And we're also losing the ability to be able to have respect for those that aren't on the same level as we are. And when I say that with true humbleness. When I say we, I'm including all of this. Because everyone out there, there's a lot of you out there that knows a lot of things that I don't know. And there's a lot of things that I know that many of you out there don't know. So all of us as a team help us all to keep surging forward. And so when I use that term we are those that don't know everything. Now, for those of you that happen to be listening to this that know everything about everything, well, you know what? You might as well just shut it off right now because you don't really need this podcast. You don't need to listen to Facebook. You don't need to listen to anybody talk. And matter of fact, we would all probably prefer that you don't talk to us either, because there's no way we're going to measure up to your perfectionism. That's right. They are never going to measure up. So, you don't have to keep harping on us about that. So I know there's nobody out there like that, but we've all seen those guys. So I just kind of said how we all feel sometimes. And it's one of those things, it's okay not to know something. That's what it's all about. And that's what these groups are for, and the Facebook groups. It's for us all to learn. And that's why I'm offering, when I'm starting to change some of my views, because I'm starting to see there's a lot of people who are afraid to ask the question. Well, I'm a safe place where you can ask it in private. I see that in class all the time. It's amazing. I see it, school's out now. But it's amazing. I'll get a new group of students in next week in my third year class. And the fourth year class, they'll already know me. But in third year, I always see it. The guys, we get into a lot of the technical stuff and theory. And it's quite complicated. Now, for me, it might not be as complicated. And I can have a good discussion. Do I know everything? No. But I can have a good discussion with an engineer. I can have a great discussion with somebody who designs VFDs. And we can have a good discussion on it. Whereas the guy that's coming up, he feels totally left out. He don't even know enough to know what kind of question to ask. So he doesn't ask any questions. And he just sits there totally dumbfounded, and everything's going over his head. Well, what I encourage the guys to do, whenever I say something in class that you do not understand, raise your hand. Because I guarantee you there's somebody else in the class that wanted to ask that same question. It happens all the time. And it's amazing where sometimes we get a question. Of course, I get the one guy who always comes up and says, oh, that's common sense. Well, what does that mean? What does common sense mean today? Just because you happen to know something does not mean that it's common sense. So give a respect to the person that's asking the question. You may have the answer to help them to start surging forward. Can you imagine how that worked out? I mean, instead of bashing the guy and picking on him for asking a legitimate question that you might think sounds totally stupid. I mean, it's like, Well, we always joke about it in the electrical trade. Guy's got a master's license. They don't even know how to wire a three-way switch. Well, I'm just as guilty of that too. But, there's a lot of guys out there who have a master's license that has never wired a three-way switch. They may have just done industrial controls all day long. They've never done a residential or even a commercial or any kind of job. They've worked on robotics. And they've done the electrical to that and done work on PLCs and VFDs. And they've never really thought about how to do a three-way switch or what's involved with it. And I'm using that kind of an example, and that's an extreme case. I personally think every electrician should know how to wire a three-way switch. But when somebody really comes up, I have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. At least maybe, hopefully, they understand theory and what's going on, so I can at least explain to them how to wire a three-way switch. If they don't have any of the foundation or any of that, and they have a master's license or a journeyman's license, and they have none of the foundation, well, I can't even explain to them how to wire a three-way switch because we don't have any common ground. But in the trades world and in the construction field, we all have a common ground because we're building things. We have that little, what I call mechanical aptitude, where we can take things apart, put them together, troubleshoot, and we just have that knack for putting things together. And so there's nothing wrong with asking questions. So learn how to communicate. Learn how to share your views to others as you help them grow. And on the flip side, learn how to ask questions. If you don't know how to ask questions, shoot me an email and ask me a question. Okay? What's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is I don't write you back, which I will. What's the worst thing that can happen? Ask the question. Sometimes you don't realize how many things you're missing out on your career or your success because you don't ask the proper question. And I'm going to bring this all the way back into careers also. How about that raise? I hear a lot of guys out in the field griping about how much money they make. I don't make enough money. I don't even know how much money I'm supposed to make. I don't even know what I'm worth. Well, there's no reason for you not to know what you're worth. You know what you know. And if you're doing a great job out there without, any kind of help and nobody's having to follow up on your jobs, you're doing a great job. So learn how to ask for that raise. Why do you need a raise? You don't need a raise because you have a truck payment. You don't need a raise because you have a house payment. My friends, you don't even need a raise because you have 2 or 3, 4 kids or whatever that you're raising. That's not why you need a raise. That is why you need a budget. And that's a podcast for another time. The reason you need a raise is because you're making the person that you work for money. That's what it boils down to. You're doing a good job. And so when you ask for a raise, you're going to sell yourself and say, hey, this is what I am doing. I don't get a lot of callbacks. I feel like I'm producing. I'm always here on time. I'm always taking overtime. I'm the man that's always here, or the woman who is constantly, answering the call when somebody needs help. This is what I do. And most of the time, if you're doing those things for your company, you probably don't even have to ask for a raise. But there are some times, and I'm going to look at it from the company's point of view. A company, you get the big project managers, all that in the company, they're busy putting out fires. So they may not notice you, and they may, on the other hand, forget that you're there. So sometimes you say, hey, what do I need to do to go up to that next level and get a 5% raise or even a 10% raise? So many times we settle for a 2 and 3%. But maybe ask the question, what do I need to do to go up to the next level? And you'll get them start thinking and say, wow, I never thought about that. You're already going far and above and beyond what you were told to do. So, you might just get a raise right then and there. Who knows? But you need to learn to be confident enough to ask the questions. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no. And I really try to regulate that in my class because, again, what's the worst that can happen in class? I always give that as a safe place to ask any kind of question about the trades. And so that's kind of what I do here in the podcast. It's an extension of my kind of leadership training that I do for class. This is a safe place to ask a question also, because you can also do it in private. You can send me an email. You can, what do they call it? DM, direct message on Facebook, or you can send me a Twitter. Send me a Twitter. Is that right? I don't know. Some of you guys maybe can correct me on that. Uh, but I'm learning how to do the Facebook. I'm learning how to do the Twitter, and you know, Instagram. I'm sending a couple encouraging words out there, and I'm learning and meeting people from really now all over the world. It's really fascinating to see Tony Griffin's Facebook group that's growing so big, and I'm privileged to be able to help him and his Facebook group. It has grown worldwide. There are people from all over the world, and we're seeing some really cool electrical installations in there that, you know, we have to be very careful to criticize, because in our case, we might say, oh, wow, that doesn't meet code. Well, NEC doesn't apply to places like in India or Africa or certain places in Europe, but yet it's still electrical. And so we learn from those, and we can talk, and we have that common foundation. And so we can learn how to ask questions with one another. And what does that do? What that can do is help us to grow from here, from the heart out. And that's what it called is sharing unto others. And that's where it boils down to the do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So when we start sharing our information with others and learning how to communicate instead of just sitting on the phone, just doing the texts all over the place. That's why when I do this, the coaching that I'm going to do on the code, I don't want to do it by email, and I don't want to definitely do it by texting. It's not going to happen. It will be arranged to where, before I even start the charge, I'll show you how to use Skype, or I'll show you how to use FaceTime, or, I'll show you how to, and only if you don't have any access to anything will I go with a phone interview. And even then, it's not going to do the same thing, because we're going to do visual. We'll be looking at the code book visually. And it'll just be a classroom teaching, except it'll be one-on-one. So I really encourage you. Like I say, I'm only going to take the first 20 people and give them that 50% off. So if you're interested, if you're an apprentice, or you're a young person in a trade, or even if you're an older person and you just want to take your master's license, it doesn't matter if you're going for your journeyman or your master's. It doesn't matter. If you're using the NEC, I can show you how to use the NEC to help you. And, of course, there is going to be a money-back guarantee offered with it the same way. If you happen to fail the test, I will keep coaching you until you pass. So you'll get unlimited time then. Because my goal is to help you become a good tradesman. Eventually, I'm going to have that also for HVAC and plumbing, and then possibly some of the other trades out there also who are required to get licensing and different things like that. So again, it's to help you. It's things that I have had questions to me of what we can do to help out those in the trade. And again, I don't stand alone. In October, I'm going to be going to a convention myself to continue to learn about the code book myself in big seminars. We're all getting training, and I look forward to training and talking with other instructors and learning, because by far I don't have it memorized either. I use the code book all the time. Very rarely do I quote stuff off the cuff, because I'm not working in that particular stance all the time. I have a particular field that I work with, and most of it's industrial. So I'm mostly in that field. So I don't deal a whole lot with residential. But I can find the information, and that's what I'm going to try to show you on how you can do it. So you can become efficient in using the tools that are available to you, which is a code book. That's all it is. It's a tool. It's not any kind of special document. There was a whole big thing I saw the other day about we should all get the code book for free. My friends, that's ludicrous. Maybe we should all get the tools for free. This stuff of people expecting things for free has got to stop. Nothing is free, my friends. All right? Even listening to this podcast, okay, this is free. Okay? You're getting the advice, but it doesn't come for free. There's a cost there, the cost of time. So somebody's paying for it. So, we have plenty of stuff available out there for free. So don't expect to, always want to get everything for free. The code book is something that costs money to distribute, and it's there, and it's not really that expensive, really. I mean, the people that I see complain about spending $85 for a code book are usually the ones that have no problem forking out $200 or $300 for a power tool, or they're driving around in a nice truck. So I find it pretty amazing there. So anyhow, just think about that before we jump into this. If we really want to have everything for free, well, be careful what you wish for. There's a lot of countries in the not in the United States. Let me correct myself here. There are a lot of countries in this world where things are free, but you're limited as to what is free and what you could even get. So be thankful for where you are, those that live in the United States. Those of you that are abroad, I think most of the listeners I see, you live in a great country also, and you have a lot of opportunities there. And so we all have certain opportunities where we can go after things. So be careful about having the government or somebody giving you something for free, because there might always be a cost behind it. Why do I do the podcast? Well, yeah, there's a little bit of a thing there. I'm trying to guide you to go to my Surging Forward site to where I can offer the code classes, make a little bit of, extra side income, things to do, because I, like to do things also. I need to pay for the equipment I have here. But do I make you go? No. That's what's wonderful. We live in a free choice. So communication is a free choice. And we want to learn how to communicate properly to where we can ask the question. Always going back to that, asking the question. So, in other words, when we go out again and you want to learn to grow, if you want to succeed, you have to learn how to ask the questions. If you never ask a question, you're never going to be able to surge forward. So again, I want to say thank you again for another great time we've had here. I see the time's kind of running short here, because I always like to keep these right at about 20, 30 minutes of an episode, because I know your time is valuable. And I want to thank you. So I look forward. Take the minute to give me a review on iTunes. I would love to get that. Again, if you get the time, or if you're listening on Stitcher, give us a review there. And send me an email. Let me know that you gave a review, and I'll give you a shout out here if you'd like, or, if you don't want me to, that's fine also. But I just want to give some way opportunity to say thank you for your time and the encouragement that you've given me, because we've grown so much in the past year as far as what I'm able to share with others. And I see the successes now going out nationwide as well as worldwide. And that is phenomenal. And so I want to hear your story. Feel free to share your story with me. And I just want to, again, share in that success a little bit. So again, contact me on Twitter and Facebook. Our email address is dave@surgingforward.com. Drop us a line there. And if you ever need any code courses, or you need your CEUs for your state, the website to go to for that is www.surgingforward.com. So again, until next week, my friends, remember, stay safe and keep surging forward. You guys have a great weekend and have a great week, and God bless. Stay safe.